those of you who got an invite, welcome to Nerd Prom.
No matter where in the world you are, we're all Nerds International. With the hyphen. Nerds International proudly presents.
We want to take you on a quest for knowledge. One that will take us from ancient medieval fantasy across the far reaches of space to the distant future. To many savage worlds.
Faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to tell tall tales in a single breath. It's The Wild Eye, episode 65, podcast dedicated to Pinnacle Entertainment Savage Worlds, aimed at beginners and veterans alike. What's going on, Lamoureux? Super duper, my favorite, my little sugar squeeze.
Great. It's good to see you guys again. It's been, 2 weeks since Con on the Cob, so yeah, now and not in the flesh anymore, but still with the heart. I feel you guys. I love you.
That was gross. I don't like emotions on this show. You know that, Eric. Don't ever do that again. Anyway, Gary, how you doing, man?
Trying to recover from Con on the Cob. I gotta get back to reality here. You know, I don't want to get into it. It's been a week, man. I'm tired. Yeah. 6 days, right out of the gate, right back to work, just bam, like that. Anyways, other than that, I'm doing well, which is nice.
I'm feeling pretty tired as well. That's why I, last night, was out drinking, trying to recover. That's how I recover.
I have another Granny's tale to tell you.
Oh, boy.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, let's start with that. Let's hear it out.
All right. So the gaming store that I game at, Nerd Haven, owned by Jay and Deb, they invited me over to their house for a private game with their uncle who DM'd the game, and it was on par with Granny's. It was amazeballs. I had a Mace of Disruption at level 8. We ended up going into this area where there was literally 300 shadows that were attacking us, and I mowed them down like I was a lawnmower. I put the mace out in front of me, and I ran forward and just vaporized every one of them. I was turning them left, right, and center. Most of the time, I didn't even have to roll dice. It was totally arbitrary as to how many I killed each round. It was so awesome. Out of the blue, these two storm giants appear. Like we're in darkness in this tunnel. I think there was a dragon somewhere around there, but it was pretty crazy. It was literally on par with Granny's, but there was a touch more, what's the word I'm looking for? The method to the madness in this one, although a lot of stuff was still arbitrary. On my turn, I wanted to drink my potion, and I had to roll percentile to fail, basically is what happened. And I'm like, wait a second, what's going on here? But anyways, it was actually super fun. It was a wickedly good game, and like I said, there was a method to its madness, but it was literally on par with Granny's. It was so crazy.
So what you're saying is that you'd play it again?
I'd play Granny's again. Actually, believe it or not, let's do a little plug for David at Oakham Arts. He just released yesterday. There's a new Granny's adventure. I think it's called Knightshade or something like that. That came out. I have to look and see. But anyways, yeah, there you go.
All right, so David Oakham, shout out to that guy who made Grandma World. That's actually a good product. Just don't run it terribly. We want to say that after the previous episode where we talked about the worst game Gary and I had ever played in, Grandma World. That was just run by a madman. So we want to point that out. But today, I want to shout out something very special indeed, because we've got a guest on the show. A very special guest, a very handsome guest. It is, of course, our resident superhero expert, Uncle J. My name's Uncle J, I never tap out cause I'm too hard. Screw D&D, I've never played a level 2 bard. Cut my teeth on Marvel, that's where I learned to face rip. That's why I won all the fights in the schoolyard. Yeah, And I like the men in tights. Oh god, yes, I like the men in tights. What? Oh, no, it's nothing like that. I'm talking about Superman, Robin and Batman. Come on, don't look at me like that. Look at my collection, I've got stacks and stacks. Oh no, not of porn, of comic books. Please come back.
I'm going, see ya.
Say hello, Uncle Jay.
I don't think I'm able to. Oh, that was easily the best thing that I've ever heard today.
Just today.
Is Harrison your new favorite now?
Easily, he's my new favorite now. So we're gonna have to see how this goes for the rest of the show, because anybody can chime in and be my favorite.
Good. For those that don't understand that joke, when we were at Cod on the Cob, Jay would have a few beers and then consistently say that a new person was his favourite every 30 seconds. That's the type of guy we're dealing with here. But we brought Jay on today because we're going to be talking about supers in Savage Worlds, how to do it best. We're going to ask him questions about superheroes. He's going to give us the lowdown on all things supers. And it's because that's what he does. He loves men in tights. He loves buff men. Just men in general. He's a real man's man, is Jay. And that's what we're going to be doing today. But before we do that, we're going to be getting into sort of what we've been up to since the last show. And I just want to tell you guys that my Flash Gordon finally arrived. It took nearly a year. And that's what European-friendly shipping does, guys. That's European-friendly shipping for you. Can you believe it? It's finally here. European-friendly shipping only took nearly a year. God, I'm pleased.
Well, you can't have both. You know, it's either you pay up or you wait up.
I just don't see what's friendly about nearly a year. You know, it's yeah, well done, Pinnacle. And you wouldn't believe the stretch goals, guys. God, oh my God, I'm so pleased. I asked for bookmarks and they delivered. Not only are they flimsy as hell, which is what I really wanted for Christmas. Thank you, Pinnacle. But they've got my favourite thing on the back, advertising. Thank you so much. Oh my God. It was like my Christmas come early. And then I got my DM screen out. I open it up and it's got my favourite thing on there. A spelling error. I just love it so much. And then we got the cliffhanger cards, and it's got it's got too many if anything. We got five there, and I just want to say that it was a real treat to just open this box up when I got back from my vacation. I just thought, God damn it, Pinnacle, you're the good guys. You really know how to do stretch goals. And of course, the Savage Worlds Adventure Edition Kickstarter, that funded $500,000, and we're getting some JPEGs, guys. I mean, these guys are doing it right. But yeah, Flash Gordon finally arrived. All jokes aside, the books are amazing, but Jesus Christ, sort it out, mate. Bookmarks.
Guess we need to get customer service on this.
Well, the funny thing is that I did actually, or the numerous times that I asked Jodie what was kind of going on with this. You know, she is the customer service manager, I guess, at Pinnacle. She's usually like really helpful, like very, very helpful woman, always helpful in fact, and every single time I've had a problem with any order, she's always sorted it out. But I guess because of this European friendly shipping thing, let's stop calling it that, let's call it European hateful shipping, right? Every time I asked her a question about it, she would refer me to a comment that Shane once made on a comment on the Kickstarter. She'd just say, find this comment that Shane made. She wouldn't even link me to it, and I just had to find it myself. And it's like, yeah, good guys. So, you know, apparently they're never ever using those shippers again, so it should be all right. But mate, I mean, as somebody that doesn't like reading stuff off the screen, I'm glad I'm going to be able to finally read this Flash Gordon. I've run it once, and I've done it, like, painstakingly read some of it off the screen, but I haven't read the Kingdoms of Mongo book, so I'm glad to finally be able to sort of read about the Mongs, get really in-depth about the Mongs.
So I'm just wondering if the mailman actually like had your box set and he's a Savage Worlds gamer, and when he saw it he was like, hey, sweet, and he just took it home, ran it for a year with his mates and then delivered it to your house.
Yeah, maybe. Oh God. Well, anyway, that's my little rant over, guys. I just wanted to get that out because I've just been bottling up. You know, part of the reason I haven't mentioned it before on this show, like how kind of upset I was that I still hadn't got it is because I thought that somebody might shit in the box.
Wow. So someone is upset this morning.
They might have wiped their butts with those flimsy bookmarks. Is that what you were worried about?
That would have been fine. It's not the bookmarks I care about. If somebody had pooped in the Flash Gordon book and then sort of like closed it.
Oh man, this is gonna be a bad episode. All right, let's move on to a little bit of news.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the news. The news is incoming. Prepare yourself for the news. News! And some announcements about the Nerds International Network and the Wild Die podcast.
So, as we mentioned, the Kickstarter, the Suede Kickstarter ended not long ago, over 500,000, and yeah, I guess that's all I have to say about that. We're going to be playing it with a group. We're starting today, actually, Rippers. So we're going to test it out, see how it plays out.
I'm so excited to be able to play this afternoon because I think we sort of chose Rippers to test it because Rippers has a bit of everything in there. It's got the magic. It's going to have a lot of chases over rooftops. It's going to have everything. So that is why, obviously, Eric chose Rippers to run for us, because it will use everything. And hopefully, next time we do an episode, we can come back and say, here's what we liked, here's what we didn't like. But we just so that we don't get a poop in the box, we liked everything. Just saying that in advance.
Just mail your box set here to my house first, and I'll make sure that gets taken care of. That said, I do listen to a lot of podcasts, and I've heard nothing but good things about Suede. Apparently, everybody is just jiving on this system, so yeah, I'm looking forward to starting Rippers as well. That's going to be sweet. Maybe I can fight a werewolf in super tights. Hey, Uncle Jay.
Oh yeah, I hope so.
Have some furry things hanging out, maybe. No.
All right, moving on. Another Kickstarter that came out was Crystal Heart on Kickstarter. For those that don't know, this was a webcomic made by up to 4 players. Very popular webcomic, which shows off the mechanics of Savage Worlds, and does so. It shows some characters playing the game in their sort of own custom setting. And now this setting is becoming a reality. They've done a Kickstarter, and I'll just read out a little blurb for you. Crystal Heart is a new setting for Savage Worlds, based on the ongoing RPG storyline in the webcomic Up to 4 Players in the world of Crystal Heart. People's hearts are literally made of stone. That's in the setting. It's not. They're not trying to. Anyway, moving on. Some people, notably the player characters, can replace their hearts with ancient crystals, which grant them unique arrays of superpowers. Hey, Jay? But also change their personality. The 200-page setting will include rules for crystals, techniques for team building, a system for requisitioning equipment to replace money, and other tools to help you play as agents of mysterious organization Sin, heading into the world in search of feral crystals. Ooh.
Wow. Thank you, Harrison. Yeah, it started last week, and I think it funded in less than 24 hours. So if you want to get in on that and get some nice stretch goals, yeah, jump on that. Everybody's jumping on it. Over $15,000 already. So wow.
Did you want it, Harrison?
I want to, but I'm flat out of cash because of my vacation. But the cool thing about this is that because of their obviously background in comics and stuff like this, the artwork is fan-bloody-tastic. So yeah, take a look at that. Crystal Heart on Kickstarter. Right, so let's take it to the edge with some talk about superpowers, shall we?
So as we mentioned earlier, Uncle Jay's here with us to talk about superpowers. So Jay, let's share some nerd cred here. I mean, obviously you didn't start running super campaigns with Savage World. So, what's your background with superpowers?
Oh, having grown up in Texas in the '80s, you couldn't really talk about D&D because that was apparently satanic, and so nobody played it. Like only like the heavy metal kids or whatever back when I was the heavy metal pot smoking kids or whatever that were pretty they're a lot older than us were the ones that played D&D, and they were kind of like removed from any of the I guess scrutiny that the little kids would have gotten. And so what we were able to do is we'd gotten in RPGs like when I was in middle school via Marvel, the Marvel Supers game from TSR. So that's kind of how I got started was, superhero. Apparently, yeah, you can't fight a unicorn or a dragon or whatever because that's satanic. But, you can, punch people in tights all day long. That was fine. So, so that's how I got into the art. Also, too, I'm a lifelong comic book guy anyway. So it was just a natural transition. And also just kind of made sense to me, like if we're going to play a game, it'd be a lot cooler to be somebody like the Hulk or Captain America than, I guess, than Frodo, I guess, or whatever. That's what we thought anyway. But that's kind of how I got into it. I got into it a lot differently than a lot of guys did, because I actually started playing RPGs via Marvel, as opposed to like getting into D&D and then just checking out like some of the other systems like Star Frontiers or whatever else was on the shelf at that time. So that's how I got started.
Us hosts, we're not really into supers that much, and maybe Jay can tell us why we're wrong of not being into it.
Well, let me ask you guys, and that's a good question. Like, why aren't you guys into supers? What's the drawback, so to speak?
You see, when I was growing up, sort of when I was in school and stuff like that, I was kind of one of the cool kids. I know this may be hard to believe, but I was too busy with with women and stuff like that, and I was one of the cool kids smoking pot. But no, anyway, I like superheroes well enough, but I just find them to be a little bit silly, I guess. There's certain things about them that I just don't find that believable, which is kind of dumb when you think about it, because you look at any fantasy thing and it's like a bunch of elves and all of this stuff running about, and then I look at like a superhero thing and I only like the ones that tend to be grounded and believable. And then my friends say, "What do you mean?" And I go, "Oh, Hellboy, Batman." And it's like, no, but those are the kind of things I like. But I can't get into something like Superman, Aquaman, things like this.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my opinion. But I think they'd be great to play. It's just that I don't know. There we go.
What about you, Gary?
Most of my RPG career was spent playing fantasy, sword, sorcery, that kind of stuff. That was my jam. That was my gimmick. So I never really got into superheroes, although I was a comic collector as a kid. So it's not that I'm not into it. I just never really played it RPG style. And actually, we should probably take a minute, maybe pull over to the side of the road and take 30 seconds to give praise to a fallen comrade, Stan Lee. We lost him a couple weeks back. And we wouldn't have a lot of what we do have if it wasn't for good old Stan. So I know that I'm going to take 30 seconds and try and go wipe this tear out of my eye that I got. But it's good. It's kind of a sad thing, man. Stan was the man. That said, I do like playing supers. In fact, I've run supers before. I will say inside of Savage Worlds, I don't like the fact that, I'm not well versed in the supers. The Superheroes companion book that came out, or that's out for Savage Worlds. When I played it, I just used the core book and just used spells for superpowers when I did mine. So,
that's right. You ran the American Honeybee thing, right?
Mm-hmm. With Harrison, who vaporized a small kid through a mail slot.
That was necessary. Necessary evil. But anyway, I've played one superhero campaign and it lasted a few months and it was awesome, and it was set in Gotham, but we didn't play superheroes, but we played in a world of superheroes, but we didn't use Savage Worlds because it was set in Gotham and it was investigative, so we played normal people who were trying to be superheroes but didn't have any superpowers. Yeah, and that was quite. So there's a guy called Beaver Boy who threw logs at people. My guy was called Man, and he was the most boring man on the planet. There was another guy called Paul Cleaner, who was a pool cleaner, and that was his power. He just had a bunch of cleaning products on him. So yeah, I've never really played a superhero game properly.
That's terrible. For me, I mean, I guess I did play the TSR Marvel, back in the day also. I guess I thought it was cool to play, Spider-Man or whatever, Wolverine and all that stuff. Now I think it's mostly a problem I have with some of the tropes of the comic books where, the villain gets away, or when you defeat a villain, you have to turn him over to the police and all that stuff. And my experience playing RPGs is that people just usually want to go murder hobo, and they just want to kill everything in sight, and it doesn't play with the tropes very well. So I think that's why.
It's funny that you should say that, Eric, because when we played our Gotham campaign, every time we encountered one of the main bad guys from Batman, we killed them. We killed Two-Face, we killed Deadshot, we killed, I can't remember, Poison Ivy. We even ended up killing Batman, The Flash, Superman. We killed everyone. But
that brings to a point that I think Harrison mentioned earlier, is that he doesn't like the silliness of maybe Avengers, but he likes Batman. So from what I understand, there are different types of comic books. I mean, you've got the Iron Age, you've got the Golden Age, terms like 4-color, street level. So what does all of that mean, Uncle Jay?
All right, so we'll start from the beginning. When they started making comic books, they, of course, they didn't call it the Golden Age, because they didn't, when they were created. But the Golden Age has come to has been coined to I guess delineate the comic books, the first comic books. The Golden Age essentially encapsulates the period from 1935 to roughly about 1954. So that's what they would the Golden Age. If you think about like the early, Superman was created in that area. Of course, Wonder Woman, Batman, Green Lantern, a lot of the original Justice League. Well, what was the Justice Society? They all came out. They all were like World War II era heroes. And then the comic book industry, as far as superheroes go, they started to receive a lot of backlash. In fact, there was a big back in the 50s. I don't know if you guys were aware of it, because all you guys are dirty foreigners, but that's all right though. There was a big backlash here in America about a big communist backlash, and so they kind of like tied comic books into the communist backlash, and so superheroes kind of went bye-bye. And also too, they thought that superheroes were sort of, I guess deviant, guys wearing tights or whatever with little boy sidekicks or whatever. I guess it kind of like, projected a not so wholesome image. So superheroes kind of went bye-bye for a little bit, and so that was in the Golden Age. And then later on, when they started seeing that they could get some more merit out of some superheroes, then the Silver Age came, and that's roughly about from the 1950s to the early 60s. And so that's when the new era of superhero came out, and that's when you started getting the new Green Lantern, the Hal Jordan Green Lantern, the new version of Flash, and they started updating. They started making Batman a less like grim and gritty detective, and made him more of a if you remember the TV show Batman, the old the old Adam West, Burt Ward one, that's sort of what it was trying to emulate, like these fun jokey times where the Joker wasn't necessarily like a murderous villain, but he was more like a clown prince. And so the Silver Age kind of like lended itself to being more silly, I guess I want to say, where it was more kid friendly, because they didn't want I guess they didn't want the comic book industry didn't want the Congress to shutter them, because they thought it's tied into like deviant behavior and communism. So that's why superheroes kind of went bye-bye in that age. Bronze Age is roughly the 70s, the 70 era comic book, and that's where I cut my teeth on, like the old space comic books, like Guardians of the Galaxy came out in that era, and so did a lot of the stuff that you kind of see, the cosmic era superheroes, like Silver Surfer was big in the Bronze Age, and a lot of the stuff that had to do with space. Jack Kirby did a lot of early work for Marvel. That's when he left Marvel and went to go work for DC. So the Bronze Age is a lot of like superhero, like cosmic type superheroes. Iron Age, that's when you start getting into what they call the modern age of comic books. That's when there were 2 books that were released in the 80s that kind of like turned the comic book industry on its head. And that was Watchmen. And then the other one was Dark Knight Returns. And Watchmen was done by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. And then Frank Miller, who did later on went on to do 300 and a couple other things. He did the Dark Knight Returns, and that's what really kind of turned the superhero industry on its ear, to where like, oh crap, Batman's actually murdering people. Everybody just kind of like started taking it back, and they started realizing that this wasn't necessarily kid fare at this time. That superheroes could actually have some sort of weight and some sort of gravitas to it. And that's when I started realizing too, because I think we're all roughly about the same age except for Harrison because he's a little baby. I think we all could kind of see like the change in that, where the comic books were starting to go from, in the 80s, they started to go from silly to more like mature and gritty, and that's kind of where I latched onto it too, because honestly, like who wants to see 2 guys in tights just fight each other and have nothing come out of it? Okay, this guy's going to come back the next week or whatever. If honestly, if you guys had superpowers and you guys decided to take care of crime, you guys would probably make something a little more permanent happen, as opposed to just throwing somebody in jail over and over again. Wouldn't you say? Is that an accurate statement that you guys would probably like? If you were Batman, would you want to fight the Joker every week? No, you'd make sure the Joker stays gone for like a while. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's more realistic. Yeah, different tropes. Yeah.
That's sort of how my approach is to superheroes, because the most interesting thing that I did when I started playing superhero games is I started running, or not running, but I started playing with superhero games with people that had no idea, who'd never read comic books before. So you got like, you kind of, if you're familiar with comic books, you kind of want to fall in line with what goes on. Okay, Wolverine's not going to go ahead and murder somebody outright unless he's went absolutely crazy. Batman's not going to go ahead and murder somebody outright unless something dire happens. And to me, that just seems a little less realistic. And I like the idea. And so out of the Iron Ages, that's where my sensibilities grew out of, where these guys were where superheroes weren't necessarily going to go ahead and wear the white hat or whatever and throw these guys in jail, that they were going to make some permanent stuff happen. And that's where I kind of like that idea with superheroes.
So you originally started playing Marvel, the face rip,
right,
and all of this stuff, right? And now you've graduated, I guess we could call it that, to the using Savage Worlds, the superpowers companion, right? Do you feel like that does a decent job of being able to capture all these different types of feel? Do you run games of different superhero genres? And does the Superpowers Companion do a good job of that? And if so, why? There we go.
What you can what I've done for the most part is when I've introduced like a lot of young players, like I got into I got back into RPGing again in 2009 when my sister's kids were roughly about 9 years old, and they saw an old RPG game that I picked up at a yard sale, and I forgot it was over at my mom's house. And them being the good little dorks that they are, they were like, "Uncle Jay, what's this game over here?" And they told me it happened to be DC Heroes, which by and large I think is probably the best. The old Mayfair DC Heroes, probably the best super system that I've ever ran, licensed, I would say. Now you going back to Savage World, you were asking whether or not Savage Worlds does what it does supers well, or I guess it can fill that void. I actually think it pouring over the Superpowers Companion, I actually think it does some things really, really well that some straight line superhero games don't do very well. And that is, I think it really it just makes powers like, okay, if you want to attack somebody, all right, you got a melee. Here's what you got. You got a melee attack. You want it to be more powerful? We're just going to add some die type to it. And it doesn't, and whatever you want to call it, if you want your melee attack to be a magic katana, it can be a magic katana. If you want it to be if you want to be Wolverine claws, you can call it whatever you want to. The fact that it's generic and it's broad enough, you can do whatever you want to in this game. And also what I really like about the companion is it sets power levels already for you. If you want to run something like the Marvel Netflix shows like Daredevil or Jessica Jones, you can pretty much like set the power level to street level, which is actually pretty damn powerful looking at it. But if you want something that's a little more like Avengers, Justice League based, you can move over in a 4-color, which bumps up the power points. Street level is roughly about 30 points that you can disseminate to your, or that you can dole out to the different players. It's 30 points for street level, and it's 45 for 4-color, and there's a big power jump from street level to power, or street level to 4-color.
So that's in your abilities, right? So because usually you get 15 in your abilities, and on street level supers you get 30. So you actually double power in abilities. So you could have ridiculous levels of fighting even from the start. Oh,
right from the get-go, you actually, and this is actually what I kind of like about this, as opposed to playing something like Mutants and Masterminds or Champions or whatever. In Savage Worlds, you get your powers right out the gate. Like, you start off, like, if you build a character, like, you start off with with your set powers. It's not like, okay, you're going to get like one little measly, like, little blast power, and then later on you might like level up and get maybe some armor or something like that. Now with Savage Worlds, man, you get all your stuff right out of the gate. If you're street level, you're pretty much going to kick some ass. You're going to in fact, the Supers game that I ran there at Con on the Cob, it was all street level. And Gary, wouldn't you say that you were pretty powerful, your character? Just at street level?
Yeah, without a doubt. It was fantastic. We were rolling, well, just Chainsaw alone was rolling, I think, something like his strength plus 5d6 for his chainsaw sweep. Mm-hmm. And, he's hitting every time he's hitting in a sweep formation for like 30 to 40 points, which was fantastic.
So how come, Jay, that he had so many points of damage for his weapon? Is it just because he had... Is that a thing like that is in the Superpowers Companion, or is that a weapon that you can get in that book, or is it just the way that it plays? Because I don't know the rules in the Companion. I don't actually own it, so enlighten me.
The way Chainsaw is sort of built, and Chainsaw is actually a pre-gen who's actually in the back of the Superpowers Companion. They actually have like, which I find really, really interesting, is they have examples of these superpowers. Like, you can go through there and you can find like 4-color ones, or you can find example on the Street Fighter ones. Now, Gary references a character named Chainsaw, and that's the one that my nephew was playing. Now, Chainsaw actually, what's interesting about the superpowers is you're only supposed to allow yourself, if you have 30 points, you only can spend like 10 points in one specific power. But you can only spend like a third of your power points or whatever in one specific power. But there's an edge called the best there is, which lets you use. I want to say it lets you use another like 10% of the power points to use for that one power. So it can let you, you can invariably stack all your power points into that one particular power if you want to, using that edge. However, though, with Chainsaw's damage, Chainsaw did strength plus 5d6 damage. Going back and looking what Chainsaw had, Chainsaw didn't have any, that wasn't a heavy weapon. So yeah, he could mow through flesh or anything like that too. He could mow through flesh all day long. But until you go up against somebody who's got heavy weapon, he's dead in the water.
Okay, so does it work, the damage work kind of like Rifts?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I get you. All right.
Well, it's about the same level, but how it works is that that would be, I think, like attack melee. That'd be the power, and then for every 2 points or something like that, you add 1d6 damage to your whatever melee attack you got. Like you said earlier, it could be a katana, it could be, a giant fist, that type of thing. So the more powerful you want it to be, the more points you put into that power, basically.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So that's just a power. I get it. Okay, so sorry if I'm being stupid, but yeah, that sounds cool. No. So can you give me some examples of other cool powers, please? I'd like to know some cool powers. Are there any ones that are to do with the butt?
Well, see, what you can end up doing, and this is the glory of Savage Worlds that I can't sing its praises enough. If you wanted to have a ranged attack, if you wanted to have super fart or something, that came out of your butt, all you would have to do is just trap that as an attack ranged, and you can throw points or whatever. You can throw, you can add, like, depending if you want your super fart to just last If you want it to just be like 2d6 worth of damage, I guess it's not that super. It's not, that's about an Eric fart. If you want a Gary fart, you want it to be like 4d6 or 5d6, then you would just put the commiserate points in there to increase that.
So we played a game. My mate actually ran a game at a convention, SavageCon UK. It was a convention that I organised, and essentially the way he did it was they were kind of like superpowered characters in the Gotham universe. So it was kind of a spin-off of the one that we played previously, and they were superpowered characters, but every single power kind of had like a twist to it, whereby they were powers, but they were all kind of a bit naff. So there was one of them that had like telekinesis, but only on vegetables, and another one that had the confuse power, where he could confuse people, but only by telling a really boring monologue about the bank he works at, and things like this. Would this be doable using the superpowers companion?
Oh, easily. I
It would just be trappings, I guess. Yeah.
Yep, that's all. If you haven't taken a look at the superpowers companion, things are pretty much just laid out in Savage Worlds fashion, where you're going to have just a generic setting. Like you'll have like they have something called energy control, and they actually give you a list of like the different energy, the different types of energy that you can manipulate with this power, like cold, heat, biological matter or whatever. So you can do something like that. If you wanted to make like a Green Lantern character, you absolutely can. You can use something called energy control, which lets you, and you can trap that to use, to use plasma or whatever the Green Lantern uses, and you can just manipulate that. However, though, if you wanted to have an attack power, there's only pretty much, there's two sort of powers that do that for you, and that's attack melee, where you can trap that to have it be whatever you want to, and attack range. So if you wanted to play like a Green Lantern character, you can take energy control and you can use that to manipulate like sort of the the energy within a I want to say it's like at least it's a large blast template. But if you wanted to like produce a powerful like energy Green Lantern bolt, I would also make sure that you had the ranged attack power. By default, energy control has a little built-in like 2d6 damage that it can do, but if you want to do substantially more, I would give yourself like energy control and ranged attack, so you could use that as a like Green Lantern like energy blast or something like that. Does that make sense?
And there are also modifiers too. Like you can put a
easily.
condition on a power, like this power only activates if you drink a potion or you come out of a telephone booth or something like that.
Yep.
Oh, cool. So yeah, you could totally do something like that. Because I liked it when he was telling me about his game, because every power had like a caveat to it. It was a comedy game, obviously, because it was a one shot. But like, it'd be cool even if you did it in a serious setting, where it's like, I don't know, the power only comes out when you have some kind of trauma. Oh my god, he's such a dark character. Something like that.
Right.
It'd be really fun, because it'd be like, I really got to blast this guy with my fireball. Can somebody slap me?
Somebody slap me in the ass, and that's going to trigger your power.
Why'd you have to go on about the butt all the time, Jay?
Because you did first.
I did not.
You started it.
I did not.
All right, here's some Uncle Jay. So I think we were talking about this, you and I, not long ago, because I mentioned at the top of the show about the fact that the tropes, people will just kill whatever's inside instead of playing by the tropes. But and you mentioned that's why you think necessary evil is great, is because you're actually the bad guys. Would you say? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think they were actually smart to do that. And me being new to the Savage Worlds community in and of itself, I don't know if I'm able to sing Shane Hensley's praises, as well as you guys who've been immersed in the community a long time. But no, I think he had a good idea with the fact that, like, I think he tapped into that murder hobo type mentality that I think he knew that players would want to do. Because, I mean, here's the thing, too. Like, if you're playing as the Avengers, of course, you're going to go ahead and do your best to, like, arrest Loki, or, like, take Loki and put him somewhere where he's confined. And that's not necessarily fun, I don't think, where you want to confine somebody. Where Necessary Evil says, screw that, man. You want to be a bad guy, we're going to make you a bad guy. And so if this guy's like getting on your nerves or whatever, and you decide to, I don't know, freeze him to death, nobody's going to say anything the wiser. And I kind of like that ability. And so, honestly, the people I play with, they like that too. I think they would rather play a super villain who has to, well, I don't know, like suck it up a little bit and, like put his selfish needs aside just for a little while, just to make sure that the world's okay. But then, at the same time too, there's not a whole lot is expected out of them. That, if you play a villain, yeah, they end up, putting their fist through somebody's eye. That's totally okay, and you just kind of roll with it. And I think my players are, they're more susceptible to something like that, or they're just more. I think it's gonna appeal to them a little bit more, to where they don't have to fall, where they're not gonna fall in this like white hat sort of, okay, I'm a superhero, I've got to be this round peg in a round hole. Where you play as a villain, it's going to give them a little more leeway to do whatever they want.
Well, I also think that a lot of people agree that some of the most interesting things, at least in DC, maybe not in Marvel, are the villains. And being able to play as them, they're some of the most complex characters. Whereas you look at Superman, what's his personality? Name one personality trait that he has.
He's very tidy.
He's very tidy. Yeah, exactly. That's about it. And so I think that I think they really tapped into something quite genius there. But you own the book of that, right?
Which one? Necessary Evil? I own both books.
Oh, you don't?
Yeah,
well, it's just I don't know if you noticed, Jay, because you may not be a long time listener to the show, but it is customary whenever we have a guest on the show for them to buy me the book that they're talking about. So I'm just saying. So we'll sort it out after the show. It's no big deal, but we'll sort it out.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good.
So, from what I understand, well, like you said, you mentioned both Necessary Evil books. There was the first one, and then the second one is Breakout, and they're different in the sense, well, in the timeline they take place in different spots, but they're also different levels. The first one is more 4-color, and Breakout is more street level, and from what you told me, you seem to be more into like the really, punch someone with a tank type of power level. So more like 4-color or cosmic level. So why do you pick Breakout instead of the original one?
I think I decided to go with Breakout just because Breakout sort of aligns itself perfectly to the new Superpowers Companion, or I guess the second Superpowers Companion, where the first one, it had all the powers, trapped in the book. It had all the powers that you needed right there within the book. And just actually reading through both of them, I think my OCD kicked in, and I figured, all right, I needed to play the Breakout first because it's the prequel, but also too, I wanted to see what it looked like, what the power levels look like at street level, as opposed to going right to the 4-color, right to the 4-color tier. And here's the thing: playing street level, the guys that I play with, or the characters that I made and everybody plays with, they're pretty damn powerful out the gate. I can only imagine what we would do if we're 4-color. I'd have to if we had 4-color, if this was a 4-color game, I would easily have to. I know I'd have to stack the deck with a bunch more villains, where I could get away with having like one wild card villain per player character. Where in 4-color, I would have to have at least 2 wild cards against one, for one to sort of show off that power level, if that makes sense. Whereas with street level, I can get away with like having like one or two 4-color villains to oppose them. Where if we were all playing 4-color, I would have to get in. I would have to tap into the heavy hitter, cosmic level type villain to really oppose them. Now that's not to say that you can, 4-color can't oppose 4-color. I just think that you're going to need, just from what I've experienced, like running superheroes games, is if you have a 1-to-1 ratio with PC and NPC, you're going to have a pretty short encounter. I think what I found out is like I usually have a 2-to-1 ratio, like two wild cards to 1 PC. And so that way, it's sort of like
you go full wild cards on them.
Yeah.
No extras.
Yeah. I usually start off extras when they're trying to. I will dump up I will dump extras right at the beginning, just like, especially with somebody who's playing for the first time, so they can show us off how powerful they can actually be. Like Gary was I'm going to use the game that I ran there at Cleveland as an example. Gary, like I want to say, he mowed through what two or three extras like right off the bat. It was pretty easy for him to do so, and also it's the same thing with the other players. I think extras are good to show off like how well you can do your powers at first, but then it's not going to it's not going to provide much of a challenge down the road. I think that's when you really started. You got to really integrate your wild cards into the mix.
Answer me this.
Yeah.
With Necessary Evil Breakout, right? You said that you have all the powers in that book that you need.
In the first one you do. In the first one you do.
Oh, in the first one. Okay.
Yeah.
So with Breakout, you need the Superpowers companion to run it.
Yes.
I'm
yes,
out.
you do.
I'm out.
Why are you out?
That's too much money, man. I mean, that's a joke. Come on. They should do a bundle. That would be cool.
I think they should. Right.
Yeah.
The game that we played, we did Necessary Evil. We did Breakout. We tried to escape from some little island in New York that was actually pretty cool. And we did. We came up against a bunch of mooks right out of the gate. I believe there was 8 of them or something like that. And then Chainsaw pulled his mask down. He has like I'm assuming it's some kind of like Jason Voorhees hockey mask kind of a deal. And he pulls it down over his face, and everybody immediately has to make a fear check. And Uncle Jay grabs his dice, and he's like, fail, 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 fail. So we get to the very last one. The 8th guy was the only guy left standing. So all the rest of them were immediately shaken. And then Chainsaw rolls up to the one guy that's standing, does a sweep because the rest of them are stunned and can't run away. And probably pulled off like a 40 or 50 hit point damage strike against them and mowed down a bunch of them. We took out the rest, and then the cool part was that's when the boss showed his face. That's when the wild card came out, and he was like, yo, you guys mowed through my minions, you got my respect. And then he wanted us to do some stuff for him and whatnot. But it was kind of cool that you held him back until after we've like literally like just cheeseballed all of the mooks that were on the table, which was pretty funny. I had a good chuckle over that.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, Ironhead Tony wasn't gonna. He wasn't gonna come out there and let you guys run over him. He was gonna let his his what I call the jobbers, his jabronis come out there and do the dirty work for him.
Yeah, that brings up a point, something I wanted to ask you, because while it's a staple of comic books, you have the masterminds, the guys that can't really fight, but they're behind every shenanigans that goes on in the world, and they make things happen. So how do you run a mastermind villain or whatever in a Supers game without them getting just one-shot it? Because that's what would happen if you put, I don't know, like you guys are talking about Chainsaw, you put him face to face with a mastermind. The mastermind probably won't last till the end of the round. So
that's easy. I can answer this one, Jay. Sorry, I know you're the expert, but I don't know if you know this, but what I often do on this podcast is we'll get an expert on and I'll answer questions for them like I know it better than they do. So I'm going to do that now. Okay. Right, so if you refer to, when DC started doing the thing where they started farming out their comics to other countries, once Batman, they did a run in Japan where they had a villain called Deadman, and his power was that he would never die. There we go, solved it. So all of your villains, right, they never die, ever.
You're not too far off the course. I actually kind of do something very simple, like your mastermind villains. The perfect setting rule for a mastermind villain is something called fanatics. Is what you do is you surround your mastermind with a bunch of mooks, and anytime somebody's about to take a shot at this guy, that mook takes the hit for the mastermind. And what you always want, and one thing I found out and this is kind of funny, growing up in the 80s or whatever with comic books, like you had something, comic books and wrestling in the 80s kind of like went hand in hand. And I'm talking about like professional wrestling, the WWF and all that other stuff. And one thing that I've noticed too is like I've copied a lot of villains from professional wrestling just in the sense if I wanted to aggravate the hell out of my my players. One thing that I realized in wrestling, like you have to like you want to make your players mad at you. You have a mastermind villain. You have him escape each and every time. Just like I go back to I think about the Honky Tonk Man back when he was wrestling. You guys remember him?
Yeah.
Like he had the intercontinental heavyweight belt, and nobody could pin him because he used to cheat. He held that belt for like a year, and nobody could, because he used to cheat, and nobody could beat him. That's what I do with my villains. Nobody can get to him, and it pisses my players off so bad. Like, why can't we get to Dr. Axelrod? Why can't we? I'm like, because he happened to run off.
So every time they try to kill the Honky Tonk Man, he flies away. Like, why can he fly? He's just a guitar playing guy.
All right, well, his guitar is obviously, he put points into his guitar, Harrison. Duh.
Of course. So, but the thing is, when I've played Savage Worlds games before, when I've tried to do this, right? So in Solomon Kane, big twist because I'm so clever, and Solomon Kane was the bad guy. Anyway, it's a long story. It was cooler than it sounds. But anyway, point is most of the time they ended up running away from him because he was a badass. But towards the end, they would not let him escape, come hell for leather. So you would have it. So maybe they try to shoot or do a power on him. He chucks it back, one of his mooks in the way. Then on his turn, he legs it, right? What's to stop them from saying, right, I'm turning the scene into a chase. We're going to do whatever we can to get him. I'm slinging spells at him. I'm going to lasso his legs. I'm going to do whatever I can to stop him. How do you make him get away every time? Puff of smoke?
Yeah, usually. Yeah, I can usually puff a smoke, or usually a lot of times too with your mastermind villains. They're more inventive. These guys actually are more like your inventors and your scientists or whatever. There's not to say that somebody, you usually give somebody the invent power. That's not to say that they can't invent like a teleportation device and get the hell out of there. You can only do that so long though before everybody's like, nah, screw this. I'm not going to punch. We'll let this guy, like blow up the school or whatever and blah blah blah. You can only string your players along for so long. You have to have there has to be a payoff though.
Yeah, that's one thing. Be a way to kill him. So yep. You'll have him disappear a couple of times. Then they'll start trying to find his lair instead of trying to fight him on a one-on-one fight.
Yep, that's exactly how I do it. Where they're going to start. All right, we're going to go ahead and look for something that this guy's going to go ahead and do, as opposed to, let's look at his modus operandi, as opposed to what he's, him going home or whatever. Let's see if we can catch him in the act, and so that way he won't have, we can catch him, by surprise. And that's how I end up usually. That's how a lot of my campaigns end up usually concluding or whatever. They're so aggravated, and so they end up, all right, let's see if we can catch this guy doing something out of the ordinary or something, or we can follow his or we can trace him somewhere, and then they got him without it, without his bag of tricks, so to speak, and then they're able to, exact their bloody revenge as they should.
Very good.
All right, here's something else, because I believe there's a setting rule with the superpowers companion. I think it's like Heroes Never Die or something like that, where the ink table is different. You roll to see if your character actually dies. In this one, they never really die. They just kind of fade off for a while, or they go into stasis or whatever. But okay, let's say I'm running this, and the villain, I mean, he's dead, but he's not dead because of that table. He's going to come back later. But when you've played RPGs for a while, you know that the players, if they see a dead body in there, they're going to take it, they're going to dissolve it into acid, or they're going to chop it into pieces, and then you're left off as the GM is trying to come up with a good reason why that villain's going to come back to life later. Any tips to dealing with that? Find another group maybe?
Yeah, or if they're following your tricks or whatever, yeah, you might need to switch it up. But here's the thing though, I have done this before where I've had a villain just like die right in front of him, but then he actually came back, as the villain with another campaign, and I've done some cheap stuff. We're saying, okay, where you thought the body's dead or whatever, but actually he was put in like a futuristic stasis coffin where he ended up regenerating, and he got shunted to a different dimension, and so now he came back. He actually got shunted to the future, so now he came back more knowledgeable. He came back to came back to the past, and now he's he got another bag of tricks or something. But if you're talking about something more definitive, which is actually what I lean towards too, I think you can only play around with a villain for so long before you're going to have to make a new one, or you're just going to have to. Everybody's going to be like, okay, this is the same guy, blah blah blah. You're going to have to do something else. The good thing about and I'm sitting here looking at the defeat table right now, you can easily, if you end up getting a Joker on that defeat table, the character, they die or they disappear or whatever, and you can actually trap that to saying, okay, this guy, he went off to a monastery, and now he's actually a decent dude, at this point. And then later on, you can actually, I've done this before too, where I've had an NPC, come back from the dead, and he actually comes back as a mentor to the to the heroes or whatever, blah blah blah. I've changed, blah blah blah. Death has changed me, and then a couple episodes down the road, he's still the same guy. I've changed. You did the whole Saruman the White thing or whatever, but not really. Like, I'm a good guy, really, guys. Don't worry about it. The next thing you know, he's got his minions coming in there and attacking.
Doesn't it come down mostly to the fact that you need players buy-in? They have to buy into those tropes where they'll expect villains to come back. If they're not into that, I mean, maybe superpowers campaigns aren't for them. Would you say so?
Yeah, I would say so. But also too, I think you can only use so many tricks for so long. The superhero tropes are kind of like, I'd say they're kind of like comfort food to like a lot of older nerds or whatever, where you kind of expect Spider-Man to, Spider-Man's going to get the crap kicked out of him by Dr. Octopus, but at the end of the day, his suit's going to be torn up, but Peter Parker's going to be all right. You can only get away with that so long with savvy players, I think, where it's just going to be, we're superpowers. I think ultimately, what makes this hobby of ours, awesome is the danger that's inherent to, RPGs. If you're in a fantasy game and you go into a dark dungeon, or anything like that, you don't know what's going to happen. With a superhero campaign, I think you kind of know what's going to happen, where your guy's not going to die and the villain's going to escape. I like to turn that on its ear. I like to take the whole Iron Age aspect of superheroes and turn that on his ear, where like you might have a guy who's like Captain America, but I always like, who's strong and upright or whatever. But I like to have Captain America with a mental disorder. Captain America who might think that he's still in World War II, but turns out, he's in a locked room or whatever. I think that's how you have to do to keep it interesting and to have a player buy-in. I think you have to kind of subvert those tropes, if that makes sense. And also too, this is the perfect venue to do that. You might not be able to be, I'm not going to write a Superman story where he's just going to, DC Warner Brothers would not publish me writing a DC story where Superman goes crazy and just starts smashing everybody and starts punching little kids in the face and, heads all blow up and everything like that too. But however, I like running games like that. My villains are usually pretty nasty, and I like subverting. That's why I think I play the RPGs, because it gives me a chance to sort of blow up these notions or whatever, or just sort of destroy them. Like I might have we might have a Captain America type, character playing, but he's usually crazy and you usually have to lock him up or whatever, or something like that. And to me, that seems a lot more fun than just playing as a straight, I'm going to, straight Captain America type or a straight, Superman type or something like that. I like taking those characters and putting a twist on them. Crazy Superman is fun.
I like that approach. It's basically in the comic book universe, but with the Uncle J twist on it, where we don't follow all the tropes and who cares, right. We're still having fun.
So what you think is it's all about empowering players, letting them have fun, rather than hamstringing them by making them stick to tropes of the genre.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the fewer rules that you can have, and fewer, not so much. I mean, I think you should totally play Savage rules with rules, because we don't want to turn this into another Grandma Fest or whatever, whatever that game was that you guys ended up checking out. Was it Grandma Fest? Was that
Grandma
what it was
World.
called?
Yeah, it was a festival of grandmothers.
Yeah.
We checked it out.
The festival of
I should
grandmothers.
say one thing, Jay.
Here's another question, Jay, because I'm a big fan of the show Gotham and the Marvel ones on Netflix. Also, like especially Daredevil and Punisher. And I'm watching these, and well, maybe Daredevil a little bit, but Gotham and Punisher, all the characters in there don't really have any powers, yet it's supposed to be street level. So I'm wondering, like how Gary treated it. Do you actually need the superpowers companion? If I wanted to run a Gotham game or a Punisher series, do I need the superpowers companion, or I could just go with the core and maybe a couple arcane backgrounds?
Yeah, you totally could go with the core if you wanted to. However, though, the superpowers companion, what it offers, I mean, you have gear in there like Frank Castle, the Punisher. It pretty much like all of his, his armory. You can pretty much grab all of that from in there. I don't think you could really do what Daredevil does. With using core, though, just to accentuate like the awareness, because I would totally give him the awareness power. And if you've seen all those those hallway fights in the Daredevil show, he's not getting a gang up bonus. He's not, people might hit him or whatever, but those guys aren't getting a gang up bonus against him. And so the awareness power in the Savage World's superpower companion, you can get a modifier where you don't get a gang up bonus. So Daredevil, totally, I would say he has awareness. He's not going to be affected by any light obscurement, and he's not going to have a gang up penalty. And I don't think that you can necessarily, maybe you could give him some edges or something like that without the superpower companions. But I think if you wanted to really like nail like what Daredevil could do, or what like even what Frank Castle could do, because like all you could give him the same thing with like Frank Castle. I would give him a melee attack because he's a pretty badass hand-to-hand combatant. I'd give him I'd give him a melee or a ranged attack in the superpowers companion to simulate his sniper rifles or heavy weapons or anything like that. I think you could easily do it with the I think you could do it better with the superpowers companion because it's a little more granular in the fact that, okay, I'm going to make, this is what I want to do with Daredevil, as I'm going to make him a 30-point street level character. Whereas I don't think you could really, really get that sort of tone with just using, the superpowers companion, because or not the superpower, but just the core rules and just tweaking a couple arcane backgrounds. You're going to get a lot more. You're going to get a lot more oomph.
I'm out
With the
it makes sense because while in the superpowers companion you can also give more skill die types, higher skill die types, or trait die types, more edges and all that. So really it's not that the character has more, well, it has powers, it's just that he's a higher level character, right?
Yep, wow. and that's also too. Yeah, exactly. The fact that you can use these, you can use the power points to increase, skill dice and attribute dice. That's something, that's something you can easily trap into saying, okay, Frank Castle, he might be a street level, a street fighter PowerPoint type, but that's not to say. I mean, that all comes from his, his military training or whatever, blah blah blah. That he's got these, super edges, or whatever. He's got dodge as a super edge because of his, military training. He's got a melee attack of, strength plus 2d6 because he's, I've seen him punch. He can punch really hard. I think that's going to lend itself. Like if you wanted to make a character that was just a little bit better, or just you wanted to have like a little more. I guess granular, I guess is the word. If you want to pinpoint some really cool abilities that somebody could have, like Frank Castle, the Punisher, or like Daredevil, or even, I haven't seen Gotham, but I'm sure like the Riddler, if you wanted to make like a Riddler villain or whatever. Honestly, I don't know. Do they have Poison Ivy?
In season 3, I think Ivy comes in, and the Riddler. Well, it's the origin stories of all these characters, so that maybe it's not a good comparison because they're very low level, but
right. And they're children as well, and it's like oh god, it's so bad. It's really really bad. It's like
Shut up.
No,
Shut up.
You shut up. Right,
It's
listen to
awesome.
this, right?
Shut up.
I'll describe an episode to you. I think it's episode 3, season 1, right? There's a guy going around killing people with balloons, right? He attaches them to balloons, and then they go up really high, and they drop off. It's ridiculous. And then they come back, and some of them have got, like, really squeaky voices. Oh, God, it's so stupid. It's like one of the stupidest programs ever made. It's ridiculous. It's an insult to any original Batman. It's a joke. It's even worse.
You're a joke.
You're a joke. Shut up.
You're a joke.
Shut up. Shut up.
If you haven't actually watched any Gotham, you should just leave right now, mister. I'm just going to say.
I watched the whole of season 1, right? And it was a complete waste of my time. This is why I don't watch any bloody TV, right? This is why I don't watch it. Because if... Balloon Man, right? What the hell? That's worse than Calendar Man. At least Calendar Man had some substance.
You have the Joker. He goes around and does jokes on people.
Unbelievable. It's an insult. It's an absolute insult. They had one cool episode where Catwoman and Batman had to go and go into the underworld and stuff. That was a cool episode, right? But Balloon Man, that's all I need to say about this whole goddamn series. It's a joke, Jay. Don't watch it. It's a waste of your goddamn time. And Daredevil. Let me talk about Daredevil. Start off with 2 really, really good episodes, right? Oh my god, it's amazing. They've stolen a scene from Old Boy, which is actually a good Korean movie, and they've stolen and ripped off the scene. Oh, how artistic of them. And then they just go into a bunch of completely waste of time, useless episodes where they achieve nothing for the rest of the series. Waste of time. Jessica Jones, waste of time. All a bunch of rubbish. There you go. I've on all of them. Where's the Tylenol?
Luke Cage and Iron Fist.
Iron Fist. Oh, don't get me started on Iron Fist. Oh God, I just need a breather. Hang on.
But must be a very sad life that you live.
Oi, Eric.
He only watches Downton Abbey, and that's about it.
Now, Downton Abbey. That's a program. If we want to talk about superpowers, let's talk about some Downton Abbey. Woo!
That's coming from the guy who thinks Made RPG is genius.
Eric, have you played Made RPG? That is genius. All right. Now we're talking some high class shit, right? Made RPG. Woo!
Can you use the superpowered companion with Made RPG?
No, sadly, it's not a Savage Worlds product.
You can now. Well, just wait. I'm going to convert that shit.
Yeah, I've been working on a conversion for the last few years. Me and you should should hook up. Let's
Savage Supers Maids. Let's do it. Let's do it. And we can co-GM it.
Ooh.
Con on the Cob.
Oh yeah. We'll dress up.
All right, let's get back on the tracks here a little bit. I've got one more question, and I don't know if Gary has anything to say, but
what's up, Gary? You got anything to add there, bud?
You guys have pretty much got it all covered. There's a couple of things. We've already sort of gone over them, and now that we're this far into this episode, it just reminds me of why I don't play superheroes, and it's the whole god level thing. Like, what do you do when you come across Superman? You know what I mean? Like, how do you throw that into play? How do you put that guy up against your players? How do you do things with guys that are invincible? It just kind of drives me mental. It's akin to playing fantasy and your players are trying to kill a god. And I just look at my head and I'm like, you just right now you're just like sniffing your own pole.
Well, there was a really cool comic called The Dark Knight Returns, and in that, because Superman, he's like. He's really powerful, right? But he is kind of like he's not quite as smart as Batman. So Batman manages to outsmart him, and that's kind of the way that he manages to beat him. And it's like the players, they couldn't go up against him in a one-on-one fight, but if they managed to outsmart him, entrap him in some way, something like this, then maybe they could do something. But he basically manages to overwhelm him with some kryptonite that he gets, and it's amazing. It's one of the best scenes in all of comic books.
I agree with that.
Smart players.
That's the point, Eric.
Smart players.
You're absolutely right. It wouldn't happen. They'd die.
He kills Batman. He kills Superman.
He doesn't kill him. He beats him to prove that he can kill him, and then he says, "Right, leave me alone, because next time you're dead." He doesn't quite put it like that because Batman is not a Cockney.
But didn't what's his face there? evil superhero guy create some weird kind of genetic mutated monster that came after Superman, and in order to defeat this crazy monster, Superman basically had to sacrifice himself by like ramming something through his heart or something like that. Isn't that how it ended when Superman died? And then in the next one, they had to dig him up out of the coffin or whatever, and Superman came back, and he was a little mental at first, but nobody could defeat the evil villain except for Superman.
See,
I think you're thinking about Schindler's List.
No.
They're very similar. No, this is one of the problems with comic books, I guess, is that whenever one of the main guys dies, you know they're never actually going to die.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, in an RPG, if that happened, Superman probably would stay dead because it's an RPG.
Yeah.
So that's one of the cool things. That's one of the tropes that you could actually subvert.
It's the draw for necessary evil. The cool part is that inside of necessary evil, when you're playing this game, it's actually a very fitting title because you actually don't necessarily need to be an evil player. You're just not one of the goody two-shoes guys that will never hurt anybody. You're actually like varying levels of I'm going to do what I want because I can kind of a thing. You don't actually have to be like this gigantic, like Batman. But Batman never kills anybody. That's his motif. Same with Superman. They never kill anybody. That kind of stuff just makes me want to pull my hair out a little bit. That's why I'm bald.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you could even just be somebody that's misunderstood. Let's say, for example, you're a guy that tried to take on Superman because you disagree that he should be the one with all the power, and then they sent you to jail. But you're not necessarily a bad guy. You're just a morally grey guy.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
It could be.
And that's generally where I like to keep. That's where I like to play, in that morally gray area. Because, honestly, I think we've evolved past the point to think that somebody is going to wake up one day or get superpowers one day, and I'm going to put my underwear on the outside of my clothes, and I'm going to save kittens, out of a tree. I think that's ridiculous. I think that's a little immature. I mean, the first thing I'm going to do if I have X-ray vision is I'm going to look at my next. Oh wait, I can't say that. I better.
Wow, I feel like
right.
that was you at 18. I feel like we just experienced a moment in your past.
A little bit. Just talking to everybody. I think the feeling that I'm getting from everybody, and I think this is probably. I think Jamie Pearson even would probably agree to this because I've asked him too. Why isn't supers his thing? I think people don't necessarily like the idea of supers, or because it sort of is they don't want to necessarily play as a goody two shoes. I don't know anybody right off the bat that wants to play as a paladin, in D&D or whatever. You kind of have to coax somebody into being a paladin. And the same thing with superheroes. Like, I don't want to arrest somebody. I want to punch them in the face. I'm like, all right, let's do that then. So that's sort of where I take that. I take the morally upright idea of the superhero out of the game. And just let you, all right, you're a dude with superpowers, and you got a bunch of, and here's a situation that you're in. That's more appealing to me than somebody who's, I'm, morally upright man. I'm going to save the kitten and, defend this and all that.
At the very least as well, like, look at the grappling rules in Savage Worlds. How often is it going to go well for you trying to arrest everybody that you're fighting? It's probably not, because it's an opposed role. It's not going to happen. Yeah. But trying to fight somebody and hurt them. Probably do better.
All right. One more question. So you're a big fan of Savage Rifts as well. So you've read both. How did they compare for like power level? Would you put Rifts into the 4-color or more street level?
Rifts is 4-color. Rifts is easily 4-color, I would say. Just because you can Rifts actually flat out tells you there in the book that if you want to make a super powered character, use the 4-color points from the superpower companion, and you can actually make a superhero within Rifts. So I would actually, if you wanted to compare it, I'd say 4-color. I'd say Rifts right out the box is a little more powerful than like Street Fighter level Savage Worlds superpower companion. Just because, I mean, like right out the back, like a Glitter Boy does what 40-12 worth of damage, with the boom gun. Yeah, Rifts is easily 4-color on the power level. And that's the thing.
Rifts is freaking awesome. I don't care what you guys say.
I love it.
Who is it that wrote the Rifts conversion?
What's that?
No, don't worry.
Yeah, never mind.
And I know that Eric and I've never gotten this from Harrison though, but what really kind of appeals to me is the when you can add in the superpowers companion or powers that are very commiserate to that level within Savage Worlds, that's when I think you have something. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm playing Rippers right now, and it's all pretty much like based on the core, and that's cool. But like the fact that I don't know, there's something awesome about rolling like strength plus 4d6 for an attack, or like a 46 ranged attack, with like 10 armor piercing or whatever. That's awesome to me.
No, honestly,
yeah, but
it
then
sounds...
you're comparing it to 15 or 20 toughness, so
yeah, that's true.
I think this sounds like a lot of fun. I mean, the rifts thing with like, it sounds like maybe it's a little bit more, but the superpowers thing I think sounds really fun. I might actually, I joke about being out and not wanting to pick this up, but honestly, it sounds like my players would really, really like this. I wanted to return to the Gotham campaign we did before, probably in Savage Worlds, because I've done like a little bit of superpower stuff before. Like I helped my mate get his game together for Savage Con, and all we did was use the superpowers rules in the core book. But this sounds like it'll probably be better for a longer campaign as opposed to a one-shot. And so I do like the sound of it like a lot, using the superpowers companion and stuff. And I think this would be definitely great. Like I've made a lot of jokes, but they were only jokes, the listener. So yeah, I think it sounds awesome. And especially with the like adding damage, if you've got like a melee hero and stuff, I think my players would dig the hell out of that. Especially when you want to get the big hit on the bad guy, being able to spend power points to add damage. That sounds freaking cool.
One thing I want to add really quickly to it, to the superpowers companion, is right there in the rule book. When you guys start going over the setting rules, is there something called power stunts and power tricks, where you can essentially spend a Benny to turn. Let's say if you have let's say that you're Katana Man and you have like a strength plus 3d6 katana that you use, you can spend a Benny to say that you're going to throw that katana, invariably changing your melee attack into a ranged attack. So if you wanted to, spend a Benny to like change your power into something like a little bit more, like if you wanted to throw your katana, I would let you spend a Benny to change that into a ranged attack for a one-time use. And also too, there's power tricks, just like the same thing with like the test of wills and the tricks in the deluxe version of Savage Worlds, where you can actually use one of your powers to, lower somebody's defenses, or you can use your powers to let me see here. Yeah, you can do just a bunch of different other things, more so than just just punch, kick, blah blah blah.
So
yeah, they really the fact that the superpowers companion, they've savaged the hell out of it, makes me happy that it really adds to that Savage World sort of feel.
So if you're Wolverine,
what's that thing called where you can do like the fast? What's it called? The fastball special? Like two superheroes put their powers together to create some awesome.
Oh yeah, no, you have synergy, which you can do. Synergy is actually that's where you want to use, like if you wanted to have like I don't know, if you had like if Ice Dude shot a big ice wall, and then Fire Dude came behind it and then shot fire into it, and so that way you got a nice like slick surface. Synergy can that's where synergy kind of comes in. Now you have something called combined attacks, which lets you straight up, if you're Punch Man and you got Kick Man, you can like combine your punch and kick powers to do added damage to one of the characters, and those are nasty. I've seen something really, really, really awesome come out of it, where you've done like an added 30.
Like Gary would have the kick power. He'd kick me for 4d6, and then that would combine with my punch 3d6 to deal 7d6 damage. Is that basically how it works?
In a little bit, awesome. Actually, you get points. Actually, it's based on your levels. So let's say if you had eight levels of kick and Gary had 6 levels of punch, and you guys decided to form together, you guys would have 14 levels of kick punch damage. So you would add 14 points to that damage.
But is Eric's like narration of that right? So you could say, I want Gary to kick me. Using that momentum, it makes my punch really hard.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Yep.
I'm in.
Yep.
I'm not out anymore, Jay. I'm in.
As you should be.
Sign me up.
As you should be.
Sign me up. If I can kick players into other NPCs, I'm in.
You have to watch all of Gotham before you're allowed to play superheroes.
I've watched one season. It was enough, and I hated it.
You get a pass with me.
2 words, Balloon Man.
Why not?
I'm already writing up a Balloon Man sequel.
You did Pull Man.
I didn't do Pool Cleaner. Pool Cleaner was my brother, and I was Man.
And you thought that was cool, right?
No, I didn't think it was cool. I thought it was funny. These were comedy superheroes. Balloon Man is in a serious show. Do you understand where the difference is there, Eric? If we're doing a comedy where it was supposed to be like Mystery Men, which is also a comedy, Gotham takes itself seriously and puts in Balloon Man. I just want to point that out. Balloon.
You don't think it's terrifying to be tied to a balloon and end up like?
Yes, it's terrifying. But when you put it into a thing with a gritty noir feel, and somebody's tying people to goddamn balloons. What are we gonna do? Let's get to the scene of the crime. Oh no, there's a helium can there. Oh, what are we gonna do? No, ridiculous. Get away from me, Gotham.
I saw that movie. I saw that documentary Up, and that scared me.
Yeah, exactly. They did it in Up as a thing that was supposed to be wondrous and beautiful, and then suddenly in Gotham, it's somebody using it to murder people. Oh, God. Oh, just...
Your gritty, dark noir show has a character in it named Joker. Just remember that. He's supposed to be the funny guy. He's the humor man. That's so is the balloon guy.
He fell into a pool of acid and came out with his face all scarred, and then he does all these hideous things to people. He's a crazy. It's a juxtaposition between something that is supposed to be a child's entertainer, but he murders people. He does disgusting things. That's beautiful. That is something that is incredible. And then you've got Balloon Man.
And balloons are supposed to be fun
come
for
on,
kids,
Eric.
but now they kill people.
Don't even. You're just trying to wind me up. It's working. Right, I refuse to talk about this.
Doesn't the Joker have a squirting flower?
Okay, can we move on, please? Okay, all right, we're moving on.
All right, let's wrap this up.
Yo, motherfuckers, you all best back up. I always got a gun, I always come strap up. This ain't a game of pool, it ain't no time for no rack up. It's the motherfucking time for the motherfucking wrap up. Anyone who disagrees will get smack up. See me back in school when I shouldn't have learned to add up. Found a gun on the floor, instead to pick that up. Anyway, sorry, I'm motherfucking back up. What I'm trying to say is it's time for the wrap up. Yeah, this one goes out to all the ladies and all the men out there. Everyone in the front row, grease up. Yeah. Oh yeah.
You really pushed my buttons. You know what? I thought that we were friends, but now that I find out that you like Gotham, I don't know if we can carry on. All right, so that was really good. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that show a lot. It was great having you on, Jay. It's always a pleasure to see your beautiful undercarriage.
Thank you. It's too bad you were video muted, so I couldn't see how much facial hair that you're growing.
Believe me, it's a good thing that you can't see my video because I am nude as the day I was born.
God, something even more pale. Jeez.
Shut up. All right, so we just wanted to give a quick shout out because obviously we recently went to Con on the Cob, brilliant convention in somewhere in America, Ohio. And it was really, really fun. And obviously a lot of the other shows on the Nerds International Network did shows about it as well, such as my other podcast. It's actually much better than this one. I'm just saying that now because Eric's annoyed me. The Tabletop Twats, go and listen to that one. We did a show all about it, comprehensive. We talked about the Grandma World game on there as well. Yeah, we had a little chat about that. So yeah, and also the Finding the Narrative podcast, all about Genesis, our rival game. They did a show all about it too, and of course, RPG Brewery did a sort of report on it. So go and listen to all of those shows, and of course, if you haven't listened to our one,
Ramblings.
Oh, Imaginary Ramblings, can't forget that guy. What a guy.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, what about the Murder Hobo show? When is that one coming out?
Yeah, good point.
It's not. How many times do you need to hear the same drab content over and over again? Seriously.
Drab?
Yes. Right? Are we going to do 4 super duper superheroes shows back to back? No, we're not. We change it up. That's what we're doing. Okay,
then. Well, let's say this then. What we'll do here is that I know this is really, really bad form and completely unprofessional, but Gary, put out of all of those summaries of the Con on the Cob, which one's the best one?
Well, my personal favorite one was actually Imaginary Ramblings. I really liked the flow that Liz and Matthew had together. In fact, I think they should do their own podcast.
Could we do another? Could we do another take of that, but just say my one?
What do you mean, my one?
You know,
like
Tabletop Twats. Say Tabletop Twats instead. My podcast. Just say that one was the best one. That's what I was after, Gary. Quite clearly.
Okay. So yeah, my favorite was actually the Tabletop Twats. They're my favorite group of guys.
Thank you very much. That's all I wanted, man. But okay, so go and listen to Imaginary Ramblings one. That sounds awesome. I'll listen to it after this. If you want to contact us, you can email us on thewilddie@gmail.com, or we're on Google+, which is dying soon. We're on Facebook, YouTube, all of that stuff at The Wild Die Podcast. And of course, you can find us on MeWe, or Mew, I don't know how to pronounce that. And we're on Twitter at The Wild Die. And of course, if you liked this, then donate some money, because I need it. God knows I need it to get Superpowers Companion. Patreon.com/The Wild Die. And of course, at this point, I would like to thank all of our patrons with the following jingle. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, this one's coming in extremely quiet, because my wife's in bed. Sean, Richard, J. Raz, Ray, Aristia, Conrad, Erasmus, Neubert, Greg, Bruni, Murder, Hobo Show, Rob, Tao, Alan Bray, Corey Dersham, Stephen Dragonspawn, Manuel Sams, Pure Mongrel, Sophia's Fantasy Maps, CJ Stott, Bubbles, Peter Adams, Trevor Hurst, Carl Kiesler, Frank Turfler, Mr. Stagg, Jens Schoenheim, the Digital Dungeon Master, Remy Bilodeau, Gil Dashard, Louis Strad, John Pearson, Trevor Hurst, Corey Judd, Daryl Cartier.
And we've got new patrons. Woohoo!
Thank you so much, please. I don't know why I said that. Corey Judd and Daryl Cartier, thank you so much.
Nice.
Yeah,
Are they the best people in the world?
Nice. Yeah, we got to party and play some games with Corey and Daryl at Con on the Cob. So thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Daryl played every game, I think, didn't he? He got a reputation there. He was kind of getting around, if you know what I mean.
He looked very tired by the end of it. That's for damn sure.
They call him the gaming sex worker.
Mm-hmm. And thanks again, Jay. I really like your input into this whole Supers thing.
Well, Supers is my favorite, if that says anything.
That's why you're here. We wanted the passion. Not the knowledge, just the passion.
The passion, yep. And like I said in the Army, man, if you can't like my old drill sergeant used to say, if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with bullshit. And so that's what I'm here for.
This is a family show, so you can't say bullshit. So can you just...
You've said more curse words in the past 5 minutes than I've said in the past 2 days.
Off.
Exactly.
All right, guys, this is Eric saying, hold on to your balloons.
And this is Harrison saying, grapple the balloons.
Nice. This is Gary saying, watch Gotham, keep your pants on, keep it fun. Thanks, everyone. We're out.
Do not watch Gotham. Goodbye.
The Wild Die Podcast is not affiliated with or endorsed by Pinnacle Entertainment Group or official Pinnacle licensees. Any of the products mentioned on our show or appear on our website are the property and copyright of the respected owners. All music and artwork is used with permission of Pinnacle Entertainment Group. All items are used under fair use and educational and review purposes. All other items are the intellectual property of the Wild Die Podcast.